you can acknowledge that, things are bad, but then you can also like visibly see it as not as a woe is me victim mindset. You can see it as a bad situation, as a challenge to overcome.
Better late than never, better late than never, forever hard to measure. I might see my future fall away, but you control time, so my future do what you say.
That's a beautiful thing, man. I think that the two things I probably heard from you was, one, you don't put much of an emphasis. You do have a value on people, but it's the people that matter to the art that you're producing. And then secondly, in terms of accountability, you do care about whatever you create being a quality product. But in order to create that accountability, it's through people, it's through partnerships to get their feedback. So I think that's really good coaching tips, man, to share. I'm gonna share this before we transition a little bit, man. A wise man once told me, be your own cheerleader. Hyping yourself up is confidence, not arrogance. Don't let anyone dim your light. So this is from a wise man who just published a book. It's tip number 37. I'm 37 years old, so for me, I think it's serendipitous, man. That's the one that I drew to. I like that quote that you wrote, man, because I think that at the end of the day, our time is very limited, and I think sometimes we can be negative of our own selves. This is like from our family, how we see ourselves identity-wise, our art that we produce, so many different things. But you echo being your own cheerleader. I love that, man. Like, for you personally, I see you from afar, Phil. I know like all of us have real lives and, traumas and just things that happen. But like Positive Phil is really something that I see you as, like somebody that champions having that just a light of some shape or fashion. What has it looked like for you, man, is just navigating you being your own cheerleader, you having that positive mindset. How has that been? How have you been able to just champion that throughout your life?
I don't know. I think I became, I'm not going to say I've always been my own cheerleader, but, as I started studying well-being, going through the counseling program at Mason, learning about, feelings and stuff like that. I think that over time, I've learned the value of positive self-talk. And like, I've been in the opposite. I've been in places of like deep depression where like, it's weird, you ruminate and the only voices you hear in your head were just negative. And that, like, literally, if you had those kind of, that is the actual definition of depression, you hearing those voices, and that really can be a detriment to your well-being and your mental health. But the power of just like, that's like resilience, is like when you say to yourself, like, and it's not toxic, right? You can acknowledge.
It was good, family. God has called me to help people to align and maximize their calling with their purpose. And one of the ways that I do that is through writing. My first book is called Purpose Driven Work, which focuses on helping people to get unstuck in their dreams, callings, and their careers. My second book is Purpose Driven Coaching, which really focuses on helping educators, leaders, and workforce development professionals to use coaching to make an impact on individuals' lives. And then lastly, my most recent book is called On Purpose Leadership, which I wrote with my homeboy Vad Lee, which focuses on cultivating leadership for teams and organizations. You guys can purchase any one of my books on Amazon. Y'all be blessed out here, man.
You can acknowledge that, things are bad, but then you can also like visibly see it as not as a woe is me victim mindset. You can see it as a bad situation, as a challenge to overcome. I don't know if it's Marcus Aurelius or one of those Stoic people, but they found like even in suffering, you can say like, okay, this is really bad, but if I can overcome this, I'm a hero. Like how you talk to yourself. And so I think about that like all the time in regards to that cheerleader stuff. Is like, think about the cheerleaders, on the sidelines. Like you can be losing it in a football game, but the cheerleaders still have to cheer, right? Okay, let's go. And then like the score is like lopsided, right? Like they can't stop cheering, right? I thought about that. Like, sometimes they just sit there, but they still have to do their, like, okay, like they still have their routine, right? Like, right? And so I think about that, the power of consistency. Like, you still have a job to talk to yourself positively in bad situations or negative ones. And it doesn't have to be like, let me rephrase. I know there's some people that have affirmations that are like, you're the best, you're the most good looking person. I'm not gonna go that far, but I do say things to myself like, you know, I think I am a good public speaker. I could do this. You know, like things that I really, you know, infuse confidence in things that I know I believe I'm good at. You know, I believe that I can talk to anybody. And then evidence has shown that I could talk to anybody. So I say that, and maybe I'll say, like, you know, if I get nervous, like last night I had to do a speech. I got an award for Spirit of Giving. And I actually, you know, I was very nervous. Like stomach, my legs was moving. My wife was like, you got this, you okay? My wife's next to me. And people, you know, people can say like, oh, Phil, you're not, I was super nervous. I'm sitting at the same table as the president of the university. And then this one, a woman, a professor, high esteemed, worked at Mason for like 19 years, went before me. She wrote her speech and it was clean. I was like, oh, I didn't write mine. I thought I was just going to kind of freestyle it. And I was talking, and Maggie's like, are you talking to yourself? And I was like, yeah. Like, I was talking my speech out, what I was going to say. And then I just said to myself, like, she even said this. She's like, okay, Mr. Toastmaster, you could do this. I said, yeah, I could do this. I could do this. And then I did it. And it was over with, right? Like, and so I think like the power of positive self-talk, I've learned that from the studies of well-being. You know, I particularly, for those out there, listen or, you know, get The Science of Happiness by Sonia Levinsky. That's a book that I got about how much agency we have in regards to our happiness. Like, we have control. Like, there's things outside our lives that we don't have control over. There's things that are predisposed by our environment, nature, nurture, all that. But then there's things within our agency, you know, that we can't control how we look at the world, right? And so that gives me agency, that we have a little bit of agency within our circumstances. Even, you know, if you got no legs, you know, you could say like, well, I got no legs, but I'm still could be the best wheelchair basketball player of all time, right? You know, like you could take a really horrible adversity and still go to the Special Olympics and be a champion, right? Like, look at those both hands, right? You know, and still be happy, right? Say, I still feel fulfilled and have a purposeful life. And then another one would be that there's the Greater Good Science Center in Berkeley. They have a lot of great resources about happiness. And actually Mason does too, the Center for the Advancement of Wellbeing. But I just learned about this stuff. And I started learning about it around 17, 18, when I was actually going through a hard time. I just started listening to positive, like, and I say positive, I started looking into well-being resources, like how to be happy, how to, you know, this, because I was going through a hard time, journaling. And I think that's what kind of built me to the person I am. It was actually like reading about it a lot, or listening to podcasts about it a lot, or that was the content that I consumed, you know, was that kind of stuff. So that's kind of made me who I was recently. Well, not recently, I guess I've been like this for a while, like the counseling program, that helped me. So it was all these little buckets of learning opportunities that I learned about happiness and well-being and pouring into yourself and talking to yourself positively.
Better late than never, forever hard to measure. I might see my future fall away, but you control time, so my future do what you say.